We've already had our lesson on inductive reasoning. Now we're going to have a lesson on deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is making a conjecture using facts, definitions, rules, or properties. With inductive reasoning, we made an educated guess. With deductive reasoning, there must be an accepted fact, definition, rule, or property that allows us to make our statements. We have two laws that go along with this. One is the law of detachment, and the other is the law of syllogism. The law of detachment tells us that given a statement of if P is true, then Q is true, is an accepted definition, rule, or fact, then somebody tells you, I have the P rule right here, your conjecture or conclusion would be that Q must also be true. Kind of confusing to look at it with symbols, so let's try and do it with an example. If a ray bisects an angle, then it cuts the angle into two congruent angles. We learned that this was true during chapter 1. We have an example here now. Ray BD bisects ABC. Can we draw any conclusions from that? The key to this is the hypothesis of the original statement was a ray bisects an angle. Is that what we were given in our example? BD bisects ABC? It is. So for that reason, we can say it is true. What might help here is to draw a picture of what we have. We have angle ABC, being bisected by BD. Remember, being bisected means it cuts it into two congruent pieces. We now can make a conjecture. Because it's being bisected into two congruent pieces, we now have angle ABD being congruent to angle DBC. If a ray bisects an angle, then it cuts it into two congruent angles. We're given a situation where BD bisects ABC. We therefore can make the conjecture and the conclusion that ABD must be congruent to DBC. Our next example. If the Tigers win, then they're in the playoffs. Okay, that is our accepted hypothesis and conclusion. Now, it was Friday night. We found out the Tigers are in the playoffs. From this, we can make no conjecture or conclusion. The key to using the law of detachment is that your new statement or your statement you're comparing must match the hypothesis. In this case, the Tigers are in the playoffs matches the conclusion. Most people in this situation try and say that therefore the Tigers must have won. The law of detachment does not allow us to do that. The law of detachment says we need to be able to compare our statement to the original hypothesis. If those two do not match in a one-to-one, in other words, if they do not mean the same thing or do not match up, we can make no new conclusion based off of that information. The law of syllogism is a little bit more straightforward. It tells us if we're given one statement which leads to a second statement, that second statement leading to a third statement, that we can make a fair conclusion that the first statement must link up to the third. Think of this as being the chain rule. We can link together a lot of statements, and as long as they are all linked together effectively, this first statement can link to the fourth statement in my drawing, and we can skip the middle. Let's see how it works. If an angle is 45 degrees, then it is acute. If an angle is acute, then it is not a right angle. Can we make a conjecture or a conclusion from this? Yes, this isn't too hard on this one. Our new statement is, if an angle is 45 degrees, then it is not a right angle. We were able to get rid of the hypothesis on the second statement and the conclusion on the first statement because they are the ones that linked us together. That is the law of syllogism. If you have any questions about the law of syllogism, the law of detachment, or anything about deductive reasoning, please bring your questions to class tomorrow.